For today, we're back on Palworld, and this time with the ROG Ally. And to start it off, we're playing the game at 1080p at the low preset. So going to the settings and graphics, and here we are with that. As you guys can see, the low preset is really the medium settings, but it's called the low preset, unfortunately. And for the power limit, we're playing at 15 watts, and we're also playing on Game Pass and not on Steam, so keep that in mind. Alright, loading in, guys, and wow, 20 FPS so far. I'm kind of surprised, but at the same time, we are playing at 15 watts, so it kind of makes sense. But this game ran pretty well, even on a 1060. So yeah, 20 FPS on average, but it can fall below it as well, so keep that in mind. But regardless, not very playable at all, as is. I think for 15 watts, we'll need 720p, or even lower, to be honest, but yeah, we'll get to that at some point. Okay, now playing at 30 watts. Let's give it a second for it to actually come down. It's at 40 watts right now. We'll take a second. But this is much more playable, guys. 40 to 50 FPS now. Way better. Way better. And again, at the medium settings, the game looks nice. It's very sharp. It's a small screen, so at full res, it looks amazing. Wow, 30 FPS here, though. It was the low to mid 30s here. I think for a controller game, though, it's playable enough, I think. It's not too bad. The game does stutter, guys, keep that in mind. But at the same time, it's only a couple times every minute. So it's not too major. It's pretty consistent for the most part. Gonna beat the chicken up real quick, like I always do. I'm gonna leave you alone, buddy. See you later, man. Okay, we're still at 40 watts. It's taking a while, but I'll come back when it's down to 30. Okay, 30 watts, guys. There we go. And FPS-wise, in the high 30s and the low 40s in this area, so not too different. And turning back around, it does fall down again into the low to mid 30s. So yeah, I think at this point I would use a 30 FPS cap. But realistically for this system, I would play at either 720p or 900p at 30 watts. Alright, back down to 15 watts, and now at 900p. Now playing at 900p at 15 watts. So beforehand, at 1080p we had around 20 FPS on average, which was unplayable obviously, and now we're sitting in the mid-20s. So it's getting close to being playable, but not quite there yet. It does fall down into the low 20s in those heavier scenes. Let's go and walk down here near the trees and see how we do there. But yeah, it should fall down even lower. And for the graphics, guys, it's the same pretty much. It's very sharp, it's very clear, looks fantastic. But again, the pop-in is a bit of an issue. And yeah, there we go. So yeah, 15 watts is unplayable, sadly. Unless you want to play at 20 FPS, then I guess it can be playable for you. Let's pause it here, guys. Play at 30 watts and go again. Now playing at 30 watts, we are sitting in the 40s and the mid 40s. So before at 1080p, our lowest point was around 30 FPS, I believe. And so far, we are able to hold a stable 40/high 30s experience. So not too bad, to be honest. Quite good. Let's walk down here. And the FPS falls down a bit, but goes back up into the 40s anyway. Alright, time for 720p. Back down to 15 watts. 720p at 15 watts. Wow. 30 FPS, guys. We're playing at 30 FPS and the mid 30s so far. It's actually playable. I won't lie, it's actually playable at this point. And for the graphics, guys, again, it's quite good. It's very sharp and looks really nice. So you're definitely usable on the system. And if you're playing portably, it should be a mostly 30 FPS experience. Yeah, there we go, right there in the high 20s and the low 30s. Again, quite good. I'm happy with this, to be honest. Okay, 30 watts. It's running at 40 right now, but give it a second. But so far, guys, we're sitting in the 50s and the 60s. That's pretty good. It's not a stable 60, sadly, but it's very close to it. And yeah, the game looks nice, and it feels very responsive at this point. But regardless, playing at 30 to 40 FPS wasn't that bad either. On a controller, it's definitely far more usable, as long as it's stable and consistent. So yeah, I think on the Ally, they're all viable. So it's really up to you what you want to go with and what you choose. Okay, lastly, I want to try out the lowest settings. I just want to see how the game looks and how it performs. So I'm going to back out, restart the game, and come back. Okay, lowest settings at 30 watts and 720p. Let's pause it here and go into the options. There we go with that. And yeah, the graphics are looking pretty mid, to be honest. We have pop-in, there's no grass, there's no anti-aliasing, I can't see shadows. It just looks really bad. But FPS-wise, it does great. But regardless, for a game like this, having 80 FPS is overkill. I think 60 is plenty. And obviously playing on a controller at 30 FPS stable is playable as well. So yeah, for me, a bit too far, but let's bring it down to 15 watts and see if it does better there. And back down to 15 watts, and we're sitting in the high 30s and the 40s, and coming up here, we go up into the 50s. So yeah, again for me, the extra FPS is pretty worthless, as the game was already playable with the medium preset. So yeah, an extra 10 FPS is meh, I would skip this. But lastly, playing at 10 watts, is the game playable at all with that setting? Okay, 10 watts, and we're down into the 20s, guys. Yeah, it's a slideshow. I'm not too surprised though. The game is not playable, obviously, guys, at 10 watts. So you want to stick to 15 watts or 30 watts with this one. And ideally at 15 watts, I would play at 720p with the low preset, which is the medium settings. And for 30 watts, it's really up to you. So you can pick 720p or 900p. So yeah, that's about it, guys. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed. And I'll see you guys next time with the next video. See you guys there.